YouTube family, welcome to House of Champions. We're here with you every day throughout the World Cup, once or twice, at least once every single day in the World Cup, bringing you the hottest takes, the best analysis, and all the talking points from the world's biggest tournament. Don't forget to like, to subscribe, to comment. It helps us keep going on this, and we love hearing so much from you. We love getting involved, getting into the comments and chatting through them. And if you enjoy what we do, and why wouldn't you, leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. You know, I've seen a lot of things get 5 stars that shouldn't get 5 stars. I've seen some albums get 5 stars. I'm like, what's going on here? We deserve your 5 stars. I'm joined by Mike Lahoud and Jonathan Johnson. Boys, how you doing? Mike, how you doing? How did you enjoy those first 2 games?
You know, it was tense, it was dramatic, and it was very concacaf-y, a lot of drama. And if you ever watch CONCACAF games, you will know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, welcome to the show. We'll break it down for you.
It was CONCACAF, presumably because the strikers were absolutely terrible. Jonathan Johnson, thank you for joining us. End of it, one French-speaking nation, or partly French-speaking nation, is out. Let's start with you on Belgium. And what on earth just happened right there in those last few minutes?
Yeah, absolute madness. I mean, it was, I think it's an overdue exit from this tournament for Belgium. I feel really bad in many ways that, they managed to get the better of Canada, who I think, many people would have liked to have seen advance. But, obviously, Canada showed naiveties elsewhere. But, for Belgium, it just felt like this exit was inevitable. I think of all of the sort of bigger teams coming into the World Cup, most of us, if not all of us, predicted that Belgium would fall and flop out. I feel sorry for Thibaut Courtois as well, because he performed really well pretty much all tournament long, standing on his head in the goal as often as he could. But, it's not enough when you've got somebody like Romelu Lukaku up the other end, missing basically every single type of easy chance or sitter, that you can put in front of him. It was just madness. I mean, Lukaku was thrown on at, for the beginning of the second half as Belgium sought to try and get a goal. And just some of the chances that came his way. You would have banked on, I don't know, some League Two striker, scoring a hat trick with those kind of opportunities. And, Lukaku, I'm sure he must be feeling awful about it, but, it just hasn't seemed at any point in this tournament like, all is well within the Belgian camp. And then for something like that to happen, it's just, it really does feel like the end of an era and, a really, sad end as well for, what was a very talented group of players.
Yeah, you could see what it meant to Lukaku, who's in tears, inconsolable, and rightfully so, because this just hasn't been his season. Injuries have plagued him in Serie A, form has plagued him, and now he brings that to the Belgian national team. In the last 2 meetings against Croatia, I had to look up this stat because I was wondering if Lukaku was going to be that difference. Had the feeling when he came on in the second half. The last 2 games against Croatia, competitive games, first time World Cup meeting between these two sides. Romelu Lukaku had all the goals, 3 goals across 2 games with Croatia. And you just thought, can he bring that magic again? He forgot his wand. He forgot his shooting boots. He forgot everything. I mean, this is a guy that will be bearing the brunt and could easily become the scapegoat, unfortunate scapegoat for a larger problem going on with this Belgian national team. Alongside Courtois, the guy that I feel awful for has been the one guy who's shown up at this World Cup and has put chances in this game, put chances on a platter, Kevin De Bruyne. I wonder if Kevin De Bruyne goes back to City and tries to convince any other players in Manchester City to play for the Belgian national team. You wonder if he had Erling Haaland on his team. If anyone had Erling Haaland, they'd be celebrating right now. But he's used to having movements finished. I mean, Dries Mertens, he put a ball right on his feet. Carrasco put a ball right on a plate for him. And these players, go-to players for the Belgian national team, did not deliver not just this game, but throughout the tournament.
And I think we do need to acknowledge that this is throughout the tournament. I mean, let me give you one stat here that gives you a sense both of the disastrous 45 minutes that Lukaku's just had and the cataclysmic 3 games. I know they beat Canada in the opener, but even that we would all agree was an incredibly lucky, undeserved win. In those opening 2 games, Belgium created shots worth 1.7 expected goals. So they're basically at less than a goal a game, shot quality-wise. Romelu Lukaku just missed shots worth 1.7 expected goals, which shows you both that Lukaku's had a bit of a stinker here, but also that Belgium needed Lukaku to bail them out. They weren't creating much at all, and it helped you've got a big guy that you can aim for. My question for you, Mike,
Hmm.
is someone that obviously has, played the game at a far higher level than either myself or JJ. I mean, I don't want to do down any of JJ's playing career at school or uni, but 90. From what I'm reading from your Wikipedia page, my 96 MLS appearances. I mean, 2 goals. So maybe you're not the best qualified to talk about what I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
When you're coming back into a team after lengthy injury absences, and we know Lukaku travelled to this tournament injured. This was his first, big run and big opportunity. How long does it take for you to get that feel of the ball and feel of hitting the net back into your stride? Is that something you can get in 45 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to that first opportunity he had. Football's a game of moments. And when you take your moment, everything changes. If you don't take your moment, it breeds doubt. Once he missed that first shot with the right boot that hit the inside of the post, I mean, he could try 9 other times and that ball would not miss again. I hope for his sake, because before the injury, he was one of the best. Well, let's go back to a couple of years. A couple of years ago, he's one of the best strikers in the world. And at the last World Cup, he's one of the best strikers in the world. But I go back to that first miss. I think that's what rattled him. I think if you miss an opportunity like that as a striker, it creates doubts. It plants and sows a seed of doubt in you unlike anything you've ever seen. And everything else stems from there. If he makes that, then more goals come. But since he missed it, everything else just went by the wayside.
I mean, are we at the point where we crown Romelu Lukaku sort of this World Cup edition's version of Chris Wondolowski for that famous miss, that infamous miss? Sorry,
he's got a few of them, hasn't he? He's got a repertoire of them.
You just had to say it with this Belgium game, huh?
No, I mean it's obviously it is it's a horrible. It must be a horrible feeling, for Lukaku.
Most expensive footballer in terms of combined transfer fees ever.
Yeah, and also I imagine coming into the tournament as well with an injury, having missed the majority of the season so far, he probably really wanted to make an impression, make up for lost time, but also help his country. And then, for it to happen like this, and let's be honest. It's, breaking down Belgium's exit from the World Cup as a whole is not as simple as saying Romelu Lukaku missed these chances. Belgium went out because of that. They needed to get a goal and win this game, but they wouldn't have been in this situation had they been better against Morocco. They were very, very fortunate against Canada. And the problems run a lot deeper than whether or not Romelu Lukaku is finishing off a few chances in one isolated match. There's very clearly, a real disconnect between many of the players, despite what has been said publicly. And there's some of these players as well who, are at a crossroads in their career. They are young enough still to achieve things if they can rediscover the hunger. Yes, Eden Hazard, I'm looking and thinking about you. And it's a real moment now where I think, the Belgian Football Federation is going to have to step in and say, okay, where do we take this team next? I don't think Roberto Martinez and his staff have a great opportunity to stay on based on this performance and sort of the deterioration of this Belgian team over the last couple of years. But the inevitable reaction, I think, is that many people are going to be pointing the finger of blame at Romelu Lukaku, whereas, I think there's an entire group of players, who really need to sort of step up and take some of the responsibility.
Yeah, very true. What intrigues me is that next group. We will have Courtois around for a while. It's interesting when you hear what Kevin De Bruyne had to say about we're too old to win that tournament. Is he going to stay? I mean, those are the sort of comments you would make if you were thinking, this is my last tournament. I don't see, it being worth my time. That's all I'd say on that. We know they have really top young talent. We saw flashes of Doku today. I thought he was great coming off the bench. Asta Vranks as well. Maybe in that middle period, I think the likes of a Castagna, I would say Tielemans, although he's had great moments in the Premier League, that they're maybe struggling to step up to, we forget. We talk about the golden generation having failed, but I don't think it's a huge failure to have had your country's best ever performance at a World Cup, reach the semi-finals. For a very small nation like Belgium, we have to remember, for American listeners, this isn't a traditional, if you're new to the sport, we didn't grow up with Belgium as a superpower. I can tell you that. Belgium they had their moments in the 80s, but they weren't much of all that a lot of the time. Having said, I mean,
Enzo Schifo was a brilliant player, though.
Mark
was
Wilmots,
it
come on.
Luke Nielsen as well? Is that was he Dutch? I can never quite put my finger on it. The Villa striker,
Luke Nillis. Yeah, no, he
Luke
was
Nillis.
Belgian.
Could have been
didn't know
something
that.
special him if it weren't for that injury. My question though, Mike, before we move on to the other game, Croatia through second in the group, steady old hands. We know they know how to go deep in a tournament. They're probably facing Spain, and if not Spain, it may well be Germany. Is it going to be one and done for them in the knockout stages?
With this Croatian team, I think they're trending upwards in a trajectory that it kind of reminds me a bit of the last World Cup where we didn't know how good they could be. They have far better players from 2018 than they do now, but that midfield three, that is the heart and soul of this Croatia team. And when you have a winner, proven winner, a leader like Luka Modric, good things tend to happen. We see it in the Champions League with Real Madrid, and we're seeing it still with this Croatia national team. The question mark over this group is where the goal is going to come from. I think they've answered that with a dangerous player in the form of Kramaric. He can create dangerous opportunities at any given moment, and he was a real spark plug for them as he really goes creating spaces in the attack. Then one of the midfield runners, whether it's Luka Modric, he could have had a couple goals today, Mateo Kovacic, Brozovic, that interchanging of one midfielder getting in to support the front three, that is them at their best. But they also look vulnerable on the counter and in the defensive third when Belgium really put the pedal to the metal. And when we watch the Spanish national team, when they decide to go with the youthful exuberance that they have, they can score goals and score goals quick.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it helps, though, I would say, if you've got Josko Gvardiol in the form of his life, 20-year-old defender, £43 million release clause in the summer. I'm pretty certain there are a lot of Premier League teams and big teams around Europe that will be counting up the pennies and making sure they've got enough in the bank for Gvardiol this summer. Right, that was Croatia versus Belgium. Oh, Jonathan Johnson, you are coming to us, I believe, with some breaking news.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it looks like UEFA have just announced an official investigation into Juve. Obviously, we know that Juve's entire board resigned just a couple of days ago. There's major allegations of financial wrongdoing. And it seems like, I'm just getting the statements up now. Yes, we have the club financial control body, the CFCB, first chamber opening investigation into Juventus. So that's going to be taking a look at the alleged financial violations that have recently been made public. This could get very, very nasty for Juventus. Obviously, we're keeping an eye on what's going on the club scene, as well as everything that's happening daily at the World Cup. But anybody with any comments, Juve fans or other Belgian fans disgruntled at what's happened, certainly make sure to ping us your reaction. But obviously, that's something that could have major ramifications on the European club scene.
Yeah, just when you think
PhD, I'll just jump in ahead of you, Mike, saying Juve are in some trouble. Mike Lahoud, how deep is this trouble?
Oh, I think it could be the beginning of the end again for Juventus. It's not the first time we've seen them have trouble off the field, in the boardroom, and really in the back room. They just can't help themselves, I feel like. And I think this is a big blow, not just for Juventus, but then it breaks question marks and creates a microscope that now lends to be put on Serie A. Not the first time Serie A has been, under the microscope with financial implications, match fixing, and now this. There's no coincidence when you see an entire board just walk away and resign overnight. Bit shady when I see those things, and we're getting the reality of what's going on now.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone involved in that Arthur Miralem Pjanic transfer, one where, if we all remember correctly, they were swapped at vastly inflated transfer fees, each of them, so that the two clubs, Barcelona and Juventus, could book a nice, tasty profit and benefit from some amortization. I think anyone that has to do things like that to keep their club on a nice, even financial keel, you've got to have some questions.
Well,
But
it begs the question as well. Does that connect somehow to Barca, and is there an investigation started there as well? Because we've been up in arms about how Barca suddenly managed to activate all of these levers and go on a crazy spending spree. The summer just gone. Does this potentially lead to other big clubs? Obviously, Barcelona would be, one of the main names, based on that deal alone.
And of course, kind of lying underneath all this is the European Super League. Andrea Agnelli, who, as JJ told us, is just out at Juventus, was Going to fight till the bitter end, it seemed, to get that off the table. Who knows what will happen now, but I can't imagine that Juventus will be that much happier with UEFA if they are handed a stern punishment. We shall see. Anyway, that was quite a welcome diversion, because maybe it gave some of us the chance to watch some highlights of Canada-Morocco. It's the nature of the last few days of the group stage that it can be a little bit of a challenge watching Canada versus Morocco. I saw Morocco's first 2 goals. I have to say, I thought it was a very composed finish by Ziyech, even in front of an open goal. Yusuf and Nesri getting the second. Canada topped the group, the first African team, I believe, since Nigeria in 1998 to top the group. And certain someone wearing a leopard print cardigan may well have said that was coming. Mike Lahoud, though, did you see this coming from Morocco?
Absolutely not. I thought it was going to be flipped on its head. I thought that Belgium was going to get the top spot, and really it was going to be between Canada and Croatia. This is a Moroccan team that set out their stall from the first game, defending as a team, moving as a team, their commitment on both sides of the ball. They didn't just sit back and defend. In that first game against Croatia, they really were stern in transition. They showed their willingness to break on the front foot, and the energy in that stadium. When you watch the match, it was a sea of Moroccan red. And I said this before when the World Cup started, that some of these Arab teams, these North African teams, are going to be feeling like they have a 12th man on the field, almost like a home match for Morocco, and you're seeing the dividends paid. Early starts from them have been their benefactor, but also team performances, players coming off the bench. This is a Morocco team that's putting complete games together, and when you give them a gift, they have the quality within their front 3. And congrats to Hakim Ziyech. This was a big moment for him. Getting back in the national team, he was almost ostracized for about a year or more than that. To come back, to be in the World Cup, to get that goal, it's an emotional moment for him and this team, and you can't bet against him moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, Morocco, Tunisia, you were always going to get, passionate support following them around. Any time that I've seen them, in the flesh, they have, a fantastic following that comes out in force to cheer them on. And I think as well for Morocco, it was never, ever a question of whether the players were technically good enough, as if they could, come into it with the right mentality, maintain their composure. And they seem to have mastered that. And that, I think, makes, Morocco a different beast to previous iterations that we've seen. I mean, I remember them being a phenomenally talented team in the 98 World Cup, just, perhaps a bit flawed, sort of in terms of the mentality. But they have shown that they've learned from those lessons in the past, and now they are really showing themselves in a positive light on this international stage, and to come top of a group that has 2 of the 3 best teams from the previous World Cup in Croatia and Belgium in it. That is a huge achievement already. And you look at the quality in that team. Obviously, I get to see quite a few of them because they ply their trade in Ligue 1 over here in France. And it is a really, really talented roster. And as long as they can stay injury-free, without suspension and, sort of no controversy to sort of knock them off course. I mean, they could be, the real dark horses. I know many of us went for Denmark, as we did Turkey in the Euros, but, Morocco seemed like they could be the real deal. Very, very impressive group stage from them. I mean, looking at that group as a whole, we had the table up a couple of minutes ago. It does feel very harsh to see Canada down the bottom there. I think the only team with a worse record than them at this World Cup is the host nation, Qatar, because they only scored 1 goal. But, when you come up against a team, like Morocco, you don't take your chances and you make some very naive mistakes. I mean, that Boyan error for the opening goal, awful. Fantastic finish from Ziyech, but, terrible mistake to make. You learn those kind of harsh lessons, and, kudos to Morocco for, coming out of this group unbeaten and, in very impressive form. And I think many people, are going to be tipping them as perhaps surprise, at least quarter finalists, perhaps.
Morocco, they have a very resolute defense. Their defensive record in the group stages has been one to applaud, but a player that's been their unsung hero, Fiorentina man Amrabat, I think he's been excellent. Not just breaking down plays and being a destroyer that we're used to seeing in Serie A, but he's showing composure on the ball. There was a movement, I remember going back between the games, and Canada, they went to high press from the first whistle, and Amrabat just seeing passes one step ahead. I played as a defensive midfielder when I played, And my best games was when you have that feeling that the game slows down. You can see where pressure's coming from. You can dribble when you need to. We see at the highest level that the best defensive midfielders, Spain have one in Sergio Busquets. They're one step ahead. I think his play has elevated things for the likes of that front three. And Morocco, they can beat you in so many different ways. They're good set piece takers. You have Ziyech, and they have other players who can hit quality free kicks. Hakimi can also hit a free kick and a quality assist from him. And they can hit you on the counter, as they showed on that second goal. Quality ball in from Hakimi. El Nesri makes the well-timed run and shows the composure to get the defining touch to give him the double lead.
Yeah, like you say, Mike, it's quality right across the pitch, going right the way down to arguably two of the best right backs in European football at the moment, two top tier ones with Hakimi and Mazraoui. Is it Aged who obviously got that own goal for Canada, the West Ham defender. Bono's an excellent goalkeeper. I think a lot of people have not really looked at the Morocco squad, appreciated the quality of the names, and then we've seen, and I'll read out some of the comments here. Rafa Cardenas, our good friend Rafa, Morocco have impressed me in every game I've seen them in this tournament. Ziyech proving that Chelsea is a club where gifted wide players are wasted. I'm sure Christian Pulisic would agree with that take as well. Rafa, I know there's a few of you dying to hear what our thoughts were on Morocco. I have to say I've been blown away with them, and I always thought they would be quite good. I think if they get Germany in the next round, it would be really tough. I would kind of look at that, though, as a bit like the USA against the Netherlands, where I don't see a clear, overwhelming favourite, and there's a real temptation to go and pick the underdog. I'm sure we'll be talking an awful lot about that. Mike, just before we wrap up, quick word on Canada. They exit, obviously, with no points, a couple of goals, but I mean, there's clearly, this whole cycle, and we do have to think about these World Cups in terms of 4-year cycles. It's been hugely impressive, hasn't it?
Yeah, look, what they've missed in results, you have to applaud the audacity to go and play teams straight up. A lot of CONCACAF teams, I put the U.S. included, well, maybe not the U.S., but a lot of CONCACAF teams have gone and set up their stall to defend first, attack second. Canada has gone out aggressively, and because there hasn't been a balance to how they play, it's cost them the World Cup. But I think they gave the first ever account of themselves. You have to applaud that, and I think there's nothing they can be ashamed about. This experience, keep an eye on 2026. Do not underestimate how valuable this experience will be for this Canadian national team. I expect them to go toe-to-toe with the likes of the USA and Mexico for the next 4 years in regional competition with the Gold Cup, and also to be primed and ready for the World Cup in 4 years when they're a co-host alongside the US and Mexico.
Right. That will just about do it for part one. Stay tuned, though. Part two, we're going to talk about Group E, where everything is to play for. We'll be right back on House of Champions.
Don't stop watching. Christian Pulisic.
Outstanding from the American.
All skill, all class, and all-American at work across the pond.
Pulisic finds the net.
The UEFA Champions League. Stream Chelsea matches live February on Paramount+.
If you're an American soccer fan that follows the Stars and Stripes, make sure to check out another great pod in the CBS Sports podcast family, In Soccer We Trust. Former USMNT stars Jimmy Conrad, Heath Pearce, and Charlie Davis are previewing and reacting to every USA match with a perspective only they can offer. I mean, quite literally, I cannot imagine being in Jimmy Conrad's brain and coming up with some of the thoughts he does. Download and subscribe the In Soccer We Trust podcast anywhere you find this one. And those guys will be getting very carried away because there's a big game to come against the Netherlands. Really, really looking forward to that one. But quickly, because I know we're going to lose JJ soon. So Mike, you and I may end up holding the ship at the end. But JJ, give me your quick thoughts on Group E. We've got Costa Rica against Germany and Japan against Spain. Who do you see coming out, and where do you think the two games will be decided?
Yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to say that I still see Germany and Spain getting out. I mean, I think it's difficult to look past a Germany win, despite Costa Rica taking Japan by surprise. But I think the one that's really going to decide it is that Japan-Spain game. I think if Spain can avoid defeat, which I think they'll back themselves for, then they can obviously make it through, and that would enable Germany to overtake Japan right at the last minute. But I do feel that, obviously if Japan and Spain play to a draw, that doesn't favor Germany because of the opening result against Japan. So, we will see. I just feel it's been such a massive missed opportunity for Japan to not at least, salvage a draw against Costa Rica, and that really could come back to bite them. But then again, Germany have looked labored at times as well. I find it difficult to think that lightning could strike twice with Costa Rica as much as, the CONCACAF representatives need it after Canada going out.
The top tip here for Hajime Moriyasu. I don't know whether this was something he did in Asian qualifying as well, but when your substitutes really pay off in the first game, that doesn't mean that they therefore will have to play off the bench in the next game. I thought it was very odd that all those players that played fantastically against Germany, we hardly saw any of them. Doan, I think, was the only one to start. Mike, you're shaking your head, not too impressed with Japan, but can they do magic again and get something against Spain?
I think they can. This is a Japanese team that I think they're almost more set up and well set up to play as the underdog. We saw them against Germany. We saw just a tale of two halves, that when they get the right mix of players who have more of a direct mindset, who are willing to feed on scraps, who are willing to battle for every 50-50 ball and really use their willpower and their fitness. Japan is one of the fittest teams at this FIFA World Cup, and typically Asian teams have that fitness factor on their side. We saw it in 2002, where that really propelled the likes of a South Korea to success, especially in the latter stages when they needed it. For Japan, the question mark I have is what's the mental state of their goalkeeper, Gonda? In the first game against Germany, he was lights out, stood on his head. He was what kept the Germans out from getting that all-important second goal to put the game out of reach. Against Costa Rica, it was his mistake. It was his error that led to the lone goal, just what Costa Rica needed to get out of jail, smash grab job that they did. When you're a goalkeeper like that, when you're a goalkeeper who unexpectedly starts at the FIFA World Cup, this third game, it's going to be a mental battle for him, because shots will be raining down from the Spanish side, who have some ballers in their team playing well right now at the World Cup.
Yes, although part of me kind of imagines that for a goalkeeper, and we see this a lot, don't we? When you get in that rhythm from the onset, from the start of the game, when you can really get shot after shot facing you, the ball feels bigger. Jonathan's dropping off now, so we can cut loose with all our takes on how dreadful the French national team are. When those shots keep flying your way, when the ball feels bigger, I'm sure I imagine this is maybe one of these things that when you actually examine it, it doesn't feel true. But certainly I can imagine that Gonda was really not warmed up and ready for the late pressure that came his way against Costa Rica. I don't think that will be the case. And one thing we know about Spain, about Japan, they are a physical side. If Spain are putting crosses into the box, you can be pretty confident that Japan are going to win a lot of the ones that come their way. We've seen that. We saw that when they played the USA. They gave a good account of themselves against a robust Germany team. I just think that Spain at the moment, it feels like the only way that they can blow it against big teams, which is little teams, which is what we saw, relative to their own standards. So all respect to Japan, but they're not kind of on the same level. It feels like they've kind of inured themselves from the Alvaro Morata shockers that kind of spoiled their copybook at Euro 2020. There are so many players in this team that can go and bring you goals. But let's have a quick talk before we wrap up about that other game. It feels like it should be in the bag for Germany against Costa Rica, and that really it's about what happens in Japan, Spain. But, Costa Rica have something to play for, Mike, and we all thought they'd be out of the competition by now. Do you give them any hope? I mean, could Keylor Navas just go on one?
This is going to be Keylor Navas versus Germany. For Costa Rica, it's going to come down to two things. Keylor Navas's performance against Japan, he played out of his mind, much more like we were used to seeing him in years past with Real Madrid. And in that first game against Spain, just calamity from the entire team. You can't put it all on Keylor Navas, but he is the leader of the team. He is the icon of this team. And really for Germany, it is going to be, can you get that early goal? When Spain got a goal early, the dam broke for Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a team that's built to defend first, attack second if the opportunity shows itself. They're more reactive when they go down a goal than they are proactive. And I think for the Germans, the big question mark for them is, does Leroy Sané start? Not just who do you start at striker, Leroy Sané, he is the best player on this German national team. When he came on late against Spain, you saw just an acceleration. You saw just a more urgent play of theirs that you didn't see leading up to his inclusion. And Füllkrug gets the massive goal. Do you start him as well? I certainly hope they do. If they want to get to the next round, they will need to play him.
We'll put it this way. Germany, Thomas Muller started at striker in the second game, Kai Havertz in the first. Neither of their forwards that have started the game have had a shot. Nicholas Füllkrug, as we all saw with that goal against Spain, he certainly changes that. Leroy Sané as well, a player that will take it. I mean, it's not like Germany aren't having shots, but it can to an extent feel like they're just missing that one dominant player in that position. You know, we've said it, we even were saying it when they won the World Cup. So don't rule it out. Don't think it will stop them being successful. But we were saying in 2014, does this team have a great striker? And they were leaning heavily on an aging Miroslav Klose. You know, that striker hasn't really emerged since. Maybe long-term Yusuf Moukoko is that guy, but at 16, 17, you can't be relying on him in big World Cup games, I don't think. We'll have the team news very soon, so we'll find out. Any hope? Any hope? Let's do your predictions. Who do you see coming out of this group, and what are the two results?
I see Spain getting a result. I see them beating Japan. I actually see Japan scoring. I say 2-1 victory for Spain, and I think the Germans do get it done. The wall will break. The dam will break against a good Keylor Navas. Navas will have some great saves, but Germany have too much quality, too much just players that they can bring, just spoiled for wealth in attack. And I think the likes of Leroy Sané, maybe even Serge Gnabry, put my money on Jamal Musiala. I think he's due for a goal. Any one of those three Bayern team. I like them.
Musiala is certainly due for goal. I mean, one interesting subplot that maybe we could very briefly hit on. I'm sure you'll tell me as well as an ex-pro, Mike, that these guys don't think like this. But is there an argument for finishing second in that group? We've been speaking about how great Morocco are. You tempted, though, to play them over Croatia if you're Spain, if you're Germany? I mean, well, Germany just want to get through, don't they? But if you're Spain, are you tempted to tank out of top spot?
The way Spain are playing right now with the confidence, they'll play anyone at this World Cup. I think they're primed to really make a statement at this World Cup, a statement that a lot of us, I raised my hands up, I didn't even have them getting out of the group because of the goal-scoring woes that they showed at the Euros and the question mark in that lack of a striker role and dependability in the final third. I think the play of Dani Olmo, Marco Asensio, the two youngsters, Gavri, Pedri, they have surpassed some of these expectations in the first two games. If they take one more step forward and get a good result against Japan, convincing result, then it's hard to bet against them.
I'll tell you what, I think Japan are going to get something from this game. But I don't think it's going to be enough. I think Japan will draw 1-1 with Spain, or maybe 2-2. I'm certain they're going to come at this with everything they've got, and I can see Spain just being a little bit off it, just taking their foot off the gas because they know that a point is good enough for them. And I think Japan will get their point. But the problem they're going to have is that Germany will rack up the goals against Costa Rica. And then they'll be out on goal difference, which is what I said would happen at the start of the tournament. So even though I had every team beating Costa Rica, and I was a little bit wrong there, I do still have Japan suffering utter heartache. Right. That is our show for today. Mike Lahoud, Jonathan Johnson was with us earlier. Thank you so much for joining us. Mike, any final thoughts? Anything you want to shout out, or what are you most excited about that we haven't talked about over the next day or two?
I just want to continue to I got to give my CONCACAF teams some love, but just want to shine a light on the USMNT and how significant it is to be a team that you have a lot of question marks, whether you're in CONCACAF or any other federation. But what the U.S. men's national team are doing at this World Cup with a young group makes me really excited to also see other teams who are surprises of this World Cup. And I think there's just so much to play for within each group, and I love it. It's probably more than what you're asking for, but I typically do that.
A little bit, but we all want to get out of here. So thanks so much for listening to House of Champions. We'll be back with you for tonight's big games, wrapping up on Costa Rica, Germany, and Japan, Spain. So thank you so much for listening, though. Please take a minute to leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. We are everywhere. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you listen to podcasts. We are there. We're also available as video. Subscribe to us on YouTube, and remember to keep up to date with everything on the House of Champions feed. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.